Hello and welcome back to the County Chat season previews for 2025. We're up to third place in Division 2 at this point, and we're getting through the Division 2 teams quite quickly. We're up now to the tenants of the Marylebone Cricket Club. It is, of course, Middlesex County Cricket Club. Their home ground, of course, being Lords, the home of cricket. Their captain for the 2025 season will again be Toby Rowland-Jones, the scourge of South African batting lineups circa 2017. They'll be looking to move up one place from last year to get that promotion to Division 1, having come very close last year in a sort of three-horse race with Sussex and Yorkshire. Their coach is Richard Johnson, so you could call him Dick Johnson. But we'll leave that for now at the risk of demonetisation. Again, it was difficult between the two phases of the game trying to work out what was the Middlesex's biggest weakness going into the 2025 season or looking back on the 2024 season. But I have said for just a few things that the bowling lineup, again, is the weaker part of their game. So we'll start with that. The main reason I think it is a weaker side of the game is purely because they have lost one of their more established fast bowlers. Ethan Bamber has gone off to Warwickshire. He's been a consistent performer for Middlesex for probably about 5 years now. So the last time they were in the Division 1, he was there. He's got very good stats over the course of that time, and he's a proper bowler, and he will be a bit of a miss for them. But if you're a Middlesex fan, you'll hope that the fact that he did have a slight down year in 2024. I mean, he took wickets at a higher average, if you will, and didn't take as many wickets as he has in previous years. So, they'll hope that is a bit of a sign of things to come and that they've kind of caught Warwickshire out a little bit there. Anyway, but the leader of this bowler lineup is the leader of the team in total. It is Toby Rowland-Jones. He took 52 wickets last year, so that's one of the highest. That's easily the highest we've had so far, at an average of 22. Superb numbers, and I just think his skill and repeatable action, I just think it's eminently repeatable for 2025. Due to his skill and guile in the art of wicket taking. As I put there, just ask Hashim Amla in 2017. Other standouts for the coming season is all-rounder Ryan Higgins. We'll get onto his batting contributions later, which were truly spectacular in 2024, but his bowling alone is enough to mention him in any team. He took 30 wickets at an average of around 28. Very solid stuff for a bowler, let alone sort of a batting all-rounder. The dual quicks of Tom Helm and Henry Brooks fall into sort of similar categories for me. I think they're sort of the tallness. They're the sort of slightly faster than the Bamber and Rowland-Jones in previous years, and they kind of have that seam bowling, less swing bowling style, which works quite well for Lords with the slope there, of course. They're sort of both took similar amount of wickets last year, took 23 and 22 wickets respectively, and both averaged higher than they'd probably like, with an average of 41 and 35 respectively, Tom Helm being the former of those numbers, if you will. I think Tom Helm, especially at his best, is a real handful for a lineup at Lords. He's kind of coming into his sort of prime, if you would, at around 30. So I think he's got I think he'll be looking for a big season going into 2025. And I think if he does have a big season, it will be a real help for Middlesex's promotion push. Brooks, who is 5 years his junior, has a similar and quite strong action for quite a tall fast bowler. He'll look to build on that sort of solid but not spectacular 2024. But the reason I don't think Middlesex's bowling lineup isn't anything to worry about really is the addition of Dane Paterson, I'm not sure how you actually pronounce his name. The South African quick is looking to come over before the World Test Championship final and has chosen the perfect county for it, because obviously the game will be played at Lords. He's been exceptionally successful for Nottinghamshire in Division 1 for 4 seasons, so I can't see why that would stop being the case. Now he's moved into the Division 2, the division below, and he's just a talented, very skillful bowler who's, he's 35, but I don't think his skills are diminished at all. And I mean, I think, your bowling skills don't diminish, it's more your physicality, and I think he's got a very sort of non-reliant on real brute force and sort of strength that you kind of may lose with age. He's just got a very nice, skillful action, swings it both ways, and he'll be looking to continue on from that form at Notts in the county of Middlesex this year. The spin bowling unit has massively been improved from last year, and as I mentioned in the Gloucestershire preview, it's the signing of Zafar Gohar, which is the big difference. They kind of finishes off the triad of spin bowling types, if you will, because he's a left-arm orthodox bowler. He joins Luke Holman, a leg break bowler, and Josh De Caires, an off-break bowler. Gohar's experience and skills will be invaluable for those two spinners. I mean, he'll likely be the lead spinner for the club, just slightly in age and stature. I mean, he's represented Pakistan as a spinner, which is a pretty prestigious honour to be, anyone's frontline spinner, because there's kind of one in any team really. So yeah, he'll both Holman and De Caires, I think, will really hope they can play more as all-rounders, because both of them do have real ability with the bat, whilst also learning a lot from a really experienced and skillful spinner in Gohar. So yeah, I think it's just a really good signing for Middlesex, simply put, and I think they'll really benefit from it. So yeah, that's the sort of bowling lineup. And onto the batting, I honestly think Middlesex's batting is in a really, really strong position. I mean, it was very strong last year, but the opening partnership has been disruptive. Mark Stoneman will be off to South Coast rivals Hampshire, who are obviously in Division 1. He's a brilliant performer, Mark Stoneman. I mean, he scored lots of runs over a long period of time. So I think he is a difficult miss, but, he did have a bit of a down year compared to years past, and he is getting a bit older. So I'll be interested to see how that signing pans out for Hampshire. But I think Middlesex will think they've come out because they've got out at the right time, if you will. Their other opener is the kind of ever consistent Sam Robson, the ex-England opener. They were kind of, he's a really typically consistent opening batsman. He missed a few games but scored 872 runs at an average of 58. I mean, consistent is sort of an underplaying of how good that is. He is a really, really, really special player, and he just churns out runs every year. And he's one of those players you think he'll be a bit older than he is, because it feels like he's been around for a while, but he's sort of still in his mid to early 30s, which for an opening batsman is no dramas at all. I think to sort of retain that left-hand, right-hand combo at the opening lineup, I think Nathan Fernandez is probably going to be the option for the replacement. De Caires, a sort of all-rounder opener. I think he'll look to maybe slip in at that opening spot, but I think Fernandez, just from pre-season form and who they're playing in that opening spot, it seems like he's also, Fernandez, it looks like he's opening most innings and looked very, very skillful and looked the part in his a little bit of contributions in 2024. But yeah, going from the openers, at number 3 last year, you had Max Holden. I mean, he's been one of those players who's incredibly talented, but averaged sort of lower than I think anyone would have expected for a while. But last year was a real breakout year, scoring 981 runs at 49. So it's, effectively 1,000 runs at 50. I mean, obviously rounding up a little bit there, but any batter will tell you if you're getting anywhere near that, you're having a really solid season. I think he's got talent well above his averages, and I think he'll continue to prove that. He's going into kind of what you'd say is probably a batting prime, if you will, of that sort of late 20s. I mean, again, it's impossible to say what a prime is really, especially in cricket, but yeah, I think he's going to continue doing what he has done. And yeah, Lewis Deploy, the ex-Derbyshire man, again, sort of, I spoke about in sport there's no such thing as a sure thing, but I think Lewis Deploy is one of those almost sure things. He averages across north of 100 first-class games, nearly 50, lots of hundreds. Not really got a conversion issue. Any kind of thing you'd notice from a batter, he doesn't do really. He averages 47 across 116 matches. I have it specifically there. So he's just a very good practitioner to have in your number 4 slot. Another near 1,000 run season last year, up in those high 900s. So yeah, he's simply put a batter you want in your club, and a batter who's going to consistently perform for you. At number 5, I've mentioned him before, but Ryan Higgins, I think this is where we should probably talk about how much of a wizard he's been for a long time. I mean, his stats over a long period of time, check him out on the his ESPN Cricket Info or whatever. He is average low averages with the ball and high averages with the bat for quite a long time, and last year was just his career year with the bat. I mean, he scored 1,133 runs at an average of 70. I mean, I think he could have some big years since and afterwards, because he's not aging particularly, but he probably won't ever do anything better than that, just because of the nature of being an all-rounder and the nature of how good of a season that is. I mean, it's just those two being your 4 and 5, Deploy and Higgins, I think puts you in an incredibly good spot. especially with the signing of the season in my book on the overseas, which is a little bit of a tip for what's coming later in the video. They've also, signed a really talented batter in Ben Geddes from Surrey. He's had, he scored 200s in the not many first-class matches he's got, a sort of handful. And, simply put, by, getting young batters from Surrey at the moment, whether you be England or another county, it just seems like a bit of a no-brainer. I mean, having from Sussex growing up, I can tell you whenever you played teams from Surrey, they always had just unbelievable batters, and it's kind of seeming to be the case because, if you think about Ollie Lawrence, he did not go through the Surrey Academy, but Ollie Pope, and various others in the last few years. Jamie Smith, sorry, I'm now just like blanking on Surrey's batters, but they've had so many young batters come through in recent years that have just been really, really talented, and Ben Geddes looks like another one of that. He'll struggle to break into this top order, but I think there's a level of talent there. So whether it be, he slots in as an opener if Fernandez struggles or De Gea struggles or whoever, I think he's got a real chance of slipping in and just trying to get a few games here and there because his talent is very high in my opinion. And again, I didn't explain the point too well, but that kind of idea of sort of buying stock in Surrey batters who've come through their academy never feels like a bad idea. Jack Davies is maybe the only question mark, the wicketkeeper batter from last year. He's going to look, I think he's going to need a bigger season to kind of keep that spot. And Middlesex is a very, as I said about, being home ground at Lords, all of that is quite an appealing place to play. And he averaged 26 with the bat. And especially when you've got, players like Stevie Eskenazi in the wings, it does feel like how much rope are they going to continue to give him Middlesex. I'm sure he's a very good gloveman. I'm not a wicketkeeper myself, so I'm never very willing to sort of talk on, the ins and outs of wicket keeping, but I would have to assume he's got very good glove work because over a long period of time his averages in first class cricket for batting are not particularly impressive. So I'm sure he'll have sort of lofty ambitions to really push on his sort of career, I guess, because Stevie Eskenazi is quite a proven batter, especially in one day cricket, but his red ball kit stats are hardly bad and does fancy himself a wicketkeeper batter, I'm sure. If not, if Middlesex are looking in a really good place with their batting lineup, which I think they will do, they may look in another direction with a player like Joe Cracknell. He's another youngster who's got, he's sort of learnt the trade of being a gloveman in the world where you kind of need two skills rather than maybe just being a specialist batter could have got you in a team. He's sort of done a lot of keeping, some more keeping for their second 11. But, when it comes to batting talent, he is quite a lot of leaps and bounds ahead of Jack Davies whilst being similar sort of ages. He's a brilliant white ball player, and I think he's got a real outside shout of sneaking in as like Middlesex's gloveman if Jack Davies does struggle and, maybe Crackers get some runs early doors in the second 11 championship, that he'll be able to sort of favour a sort of more baseball approach with your lower order wicketkeeper batsman who can score a bit quicker and put on some runs later in the order with the sort of lower order in the tail. I think Cracknell could be a really good option for Middlesex there. And lastly, as I kind of previewed sort of a few minutes earlier again, I think simply put, they have the signing of the season when it comes to an overseas, whether it be Division 2, Division 1, is Kane Williamson. That Middlesex have managed to get Kane Williamson from May to September. So again, not even like a 4-match deal. It's kind of a big bulk of the season. He'll be available as their main, so he's available in white ball cricket. But we'll just be sticking on the red ball stuff. I mean, I've said in my script here, you cannot overstate how great of a batter Kane Williamson is. He is one of the many modern day greats in every format. His red ball prowess is underlined by the fact that he averages nearly 55 in test match cricket, let alone first class cricket. He's part of the Fab Four, the kind of famed, 4 best batters of his generation, alongside Root, Kohli and Smith, so not bad names to be compared to. I mean, and simply put, his game just suits England perfectly. He plays late, famously very late, and he's got a brilliant defensive game. I just think he makes it very, very good to play at Lords as well. I mean, famous for the sort of late seam movement you get at Lords, due to, again, that slope. But his ability to play through the slips, play it late, is just, it's spellbinding. It's beautiful to watch. I think anyone who likes cricket likes watching Kane Williamson bat. In many ways, I think seeing him in Division 2 of county cricket is a little bit of a shame. I think it'd be more interesting maybe to see him against some of the premier bowling lineups of, you say, your Essexes, your Hampshires and your Surreys. But, it will be maybe equally interesting to see him against slightly worse competition and just sort of seeing how Kane Williamson deals with that. Much like Joe Root maybe playing in the Division 2 last year for Yorkshire. But yeah, I think the selling point of Lords being your home ground is quite an easy one. I think you can get players in quite easily if you say, oh, but your home ground is going to be the most historic ground in all of cricket and it's one of the most beautiful, you get great lunches, yada yada. I think it kind of is a bit of a why would you not? And you're also living in North London, not a bad place to live anyway, if you've got a bit of cash, which Kane Williamson does. Yeah, it's also alongside his batting abilities, which I could go on for days and days about. He's also one of the best leaders and captains of the recent generations. He's one of 2 captains to say he's won a World Test Championship as a captain, with New Zealand winning the first ever one. The skills he can put it down into the other batters in his, into the dressing room just by talking to players, going in the nets with them, whatever. Kane Williamson makes him so likeable is he's one of the most understated cricketers in world cricket. Despite all of the accolades I've just mentioned, he'd never mention them, in an interview. He's kind of the classic quintessential Kiwi man in the sense of he's very understated and doesn't bring up his own achievements much, which is, a great thing. And I think therefore will make him a really great teammate for the young players around him. So I hope that, even now that a lot of the young players are really making use of him around the dressing room when he gets there in May. Anyway, I think, to get to the sort of overall, the finishing point, I think Middlesex are the team I feel most confident in saying they'll go up next year. Their bowling unit is the thing which is kind of the question mark, I guess, having seen Bamber leave. But I do think that genuinely they've nailed the off-season as well as anyone. I mean, Mark Stoneman particularly is 37 and will turn 38 this season. So the chances of, he hasn't had brilliant seasons for Middlesex in the last couple of years, and the chances of his, run scoring getting a lot better going into the Division 1 as a 37-year-old turning 38 feels unlikely. So I honestly think Middlesex would probably, bear in mind they'd have to pay a good price for someone, that established. I think it's probably a good time to jump ship, if you will. As I mentioned earlier in the bowling part of it, Ethan Bamber are going out. He's a solid player, but he has seen drops in his bowling averages, or again, raises in his bowling average. But you know what I mean. So yeah, I genuinely think those 2 leaves, as much as they seem big, are actually quite savvy bits of business for Middlesex. I think their batting lineup is easily strong enough to get rid of Mark Stoneman and it not be a problem and slide one of their really talented youngsters into that opening batsman position, and I think probably one of them will stand up. And I think very possibly that could have to be Max Holden from when Kane Williamson arrives, because it would be hard to see Max Holden batting anywhere lower than 4 or 5. But also Kane Williamson's only ever going to bat 3. He's the best batter at 3 in the world, I'd say. So it's a difficult one, but I think to begin the season he'll be able to sit in his normal position at 3, but I think Max Holden will end up probably opening the batting at least points of this year. And so I just think, simply put, they've just got the talent to make up for any kind of need and must as the season goes on. The bowling lineup, Roland Jones and Paz Simi, your opening pair, I mean, is about as good as it gets in Division 2, I'd say. Here, adding Zafir Gohar, again, I've not even mentioned him, and the sort of having one of the best off seasons of any team. He's a really established left arm off spinner, and will be very valuable to their title push this year, and promotion push, more importantly. I think it was a formidable batting lineup to sort of round it all off, and then they added one of the best batters in red ball cricket in the world. I mean, maybe the best, arguably. I think it's promotion or bust is the way I've put it at the sort of end line here. Not in the literal sense. I mean, Middlesex are going to be loaded and they won't change from being loaded. But in the sporting sense, I think it is that way for the North London outfit. I think if they don't go up, I think they'll think, how did we not manage to beat the competition? Not be one of the top 2 teams out of the 8 that are going to go up this season. The predicted lineup, I think, for their season, I think Sam Robson and Nathan Fernandez will start the opening positions, if you will. And in this version of the lineup, I've got Kane Williamson in, I've got Deploy at 5, I've got Max Holden at Deploy at 4, Holden at 5, and Ryan Higgins at 6. As I said, I think it's very possible you keep Ryan Higgins at 5 and you put Max Holden up to open the batting, and Fernandez misses out perhaps. Below them, you've got Jack Davies, wicketkeeper batter at 7. As I said, I think he's on the only player on the chopping block really within that batting unit because of he hasn't scored many runs, simply put. Batting 8, you've got Toby Rowland-Jones. Number 9, Tom Helm. I think he'll slightly edge out Henry Brooks just for that experience of bowling at Lords. Zafar Gohar, I think, will be their spinner, and Dane Patterson at 11. Okay, and that's the roundup for Middlesex. It's a good preview. I think if you're a Middlesex fan, it's a good place to be. You'd be happy to be a Middlesex fan going into the 2025 season. So thank you very much for listening, and check out the next one.